Well, we're going to jump right in. Today, we are going to paint a hedgehog Valentine. And you probably can barely see this sketch because I sketched it very lightly so that it wouldn't, you couldn't see the sketch through the pink of this heart and the little hearts that will be around it. So today you can paint with me. So if you have paints and paper and all your brushes, you can pause this right now, get yourself all set up, and we're going to have this real time. We're going to paint it in real time. So you can get all set up and then come on back and paint with me if you like. So what I did first here is the heart that the hedgehog is holding. I'm just using my, I think here I used a number 7 round, and I'm just painting in that you can see the pink that I'm grabbing there. It's this beautiful, vibrant pink. And I'm putting that along the edges and then pulling it in toward the center and just sort of blending it around. And then I'm not going to go back in to this heart. I'm going to just use this initial color because I like the way it sort of spread out all on its own. I love the way watercolor just blends like that, and kind of the more you mess with it, the more it sort of loses its smooth edges or its smooth blend. And so what I did just now is with a clean dry brush, I just sort of picked up some of the pigment from the center in order for it to have sort of a round look to it. And then I'm going to let that dry. And then, so I did pause for a moment and let that dry because I'm going to go in. I'm going to start with the background of the hedgehog. And if I didn't wait for the heart to dry, then anytime I got near that pink, the hedgehog color would bleed into it. So we definitely have a situation where we want that heart to dry. So what I'm doing is just putting in what I feel is going to be the lightest or the background color of the hedgehog's face. And it's just that sort of camel color that's down next to the black in this palette. If you have the same palette as me, it's the sort of camel color, yellowish camel color background. So see how I'm dragging it right next to the pink. So if that pink wasn't dry, they would bleed together and then we would have a mess. And sometimes people like that mess. They like the bled together kind of look for watercolors. But you guys, if you've painted with me before, you know that I just, I'm a little bit more, interested in detail than maybe the average watercolor painter. So I'm just sort of using the strokes. I'm filling this whole face area in, but I'm still doing it in the strokes because you will see the texture. And then, once I get that in, I'm going into this darkest brown. On camera, it sort of looks black, but it's this dark, dark brown. And I'll dab it off on my brush, and then we'll start putting in the darker color sort of spines or wispiness that's outside that face color that's dark where the little spines are. And again, I'm sort of filling in this whole like shape around him. When I sketched him out, I noticed that I was sort of making an avocado shape. He was sort of an avocado. So even though I'm mostly filling in this area with this darker brown, I'm still doing that with that same brushstroke because those strokes, you will, even though it sort of blends together, you will be able to see those brush strokes, and that will ultimately give him a feeling or the texture of his fur or his little spikes. I'm not really sure if hedgehogs are as sort of spiny or spiky as they are in my imagination. When I see pictures of them and things, I always think that they're spiny, almost like a porcupine, but I'm not sure. I've never actually held one or touched one, so I don't know. But now I'm just sort of dragging that dark color with wispy strokes into the face, so that you're just starting to get sort of some dimension here. And see, as my paintbrush is dry, it has some paint on it, but it doesn't have a lot of water on it. So it's sort of grabbing the dark and pulling it into the light. And as you put in the dark, it's sort of carving out the light hairs or the light fur, I guess, as it were. Yeah, I'm just sort of blending it together because I know in a few minutes I'll be able to go and define that area a little more with a technique that I think honestly is very unique to my style of watercolor painting. I really don't know a lot of other artists that sort of I guess it's not outside the scope of reality to say that I have a little bit of a cheat. I have a little bit of a watercolor cheat in that I feel that most of the painting is watercolor, so I can say I'm a watercolor artist, at least when I'm using watercolor. But I do go in and redefine light areas with white Posca pen paint. And I don't use the pen itself, but I use it mixed with color or white by itself because it goes over watercolor paint. And if you just try to use white watercolor paint, it doesn't really give that pop of white that I'm looking for. So now I'm just sort of, same thing that I did up on the head. I'm just putting in a base of the color, and the nature of a hedgehog is that there's lots of color, lots of different color in the fur. There's dark, there's medium, there's black, and there's also white sort of at the tips. Now, anybody who has seen some other of my paintings, you guys are probably wondering, is this Harold? Is this Harold from the Christmas painting that I did, or Harold from the Thanksgiving cornucopia painting that I did? And the answer is, I don't know. I'm just sort of painting him, and I feel at the end, if he looks like Harold, then we'll say he's Harold. But at this point, my goal was to do a little bit of a quicker painting, because I was thinking this is just going to be like a little Valentine. It doesn't have to have all of the detail and the very explained background and all of the things. I'm hoping, because I very rarely am able to pull off a painting that in just one sitting, where I just sit there and finish a painting. And the reason for that is because I am so in love with detail. I'm so in love with, going over and over and layering in detail. And my goal, just so you guys know, my goal in this one is to be able to do a real-time painting, meaning I'm not time-lapsing it, a real-time painting all in one sitting and one video. So we don't have like part 1, part 2, part 3. So this is the goal is for this to be one video and a more simplified version. So because of that, I don't think this is going to necessarily look just like Harold, because Harold has a lot of detail. And so this hedgehog might be maybe just one of his friends. So now what I'm doing is I'm taking that light, that kind of camel color, and I'm filling in his ears. And I'm sort of doing this thing where I scrub with the really wet paint. I scrub so that it doesn't erase, but sort of erases. It sort of blends out the strokes of the darker spines that are underneath his ears there. So it essentially sort of erases those strokes so that his ears can exist right there. See, so I dried off I used the wet paint and I scrub, and then I dried it off and I picked up that paint. So now you can't really see those dark strokes through it, so that he can have his ears. And so now I'm going to take some of that dark, and I'm just going to sort of add another layer of his fur, his like little spiny, little spiky, spiny fur. And as I do that, I'm sort of overlapping the light. And sometimes when you do that, you're actually creating the light fur by doing the dark strokes, if that makes sense. So by putting the dark strokes in, you can now all of a sudden see the presentation of the light strokes. So that's the goal here. That's what we're doing. And I know that I'm going to eventually be able to go in and sort of map out that face more when I incorporate the Posca pen. So this is just layers, you know? Sometimes you're like layers on layers on layers on layers on layers. And but because I'm doing this real time, you're going to get to see that sometimes it's not even dry and you're still just, sort of swiping over areas here. Carving out his little cheeks and above his nose here, and just giving him some shape. And now I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, he's a little dark. So I dried off my brush and I'm trying to pick up some of that, and it's blending it maybe a little bit more than I'd like. So now I'm already in my mind sort of deciding, I'm going to have to use that Posca paint. And now when I painted Harold, I remember using this purple color around his snout, and it really gave kind of a realistic hedgehog snout when I used this light purple color. I don't know if you guys can hear, but my dog is whining in the background. I may need to pause and let him out. But he likes to pick the most inopportune times to need to go outside. Oh, all right. I'm going to pause right here. Okay. Mission complete. Dog walked, and here we go. So again, I am just doing another layer because with fur or spines or whatever these things are, with fur, the more different colors and layers, or the same color and layers that you do, the more sort of realistic or lifelike or just like pleasing texture you're going to get. So I'm just trying to add, and I'm trying to shape him in that sort of hedgehog avocado shape. Now, I took that camel color And I'm putting his little fingers, his little paw fingers, whatever, in here because he's holding this sort of bulbous heart. But if you can see, I painted the heart like through his fingers. So I made my brush very wet. And then you're going to see that as I put his fingers over, you can see the heart through his fingers. And we don't want that. So I'm going to do the same technique that I did to scrub out the area of his ears. So I made my brush pretty wet. Not like sopping wet, but pretty wet. And if you can see, I'm sort of scrubbing the paper where his fingers will be. And what it does is sort of wash out that part of the heart so that his hands look like they are actually holding the heart or in front of the heart. So I just sort of scrubbed it out. And then I dried off my brush and I'm picking up that water that I used to scrub. And then I'm able to dip into that camel color and fill in those areas where I scrubbed it up. Actually, it looks like I'm taking the darkest brown and the areas around the hands. Like, see that little like area that hasn't been painted around the hands on the outside of that heart there. I'm just putting the darkest color so that it looks like the heart is sort of popping out in front of it. And I'm using the dark here to carve out his fingers. So there's like little shadow between his fingers, so it's just not one big paw. And I'm gonna darken in that purple because it seems to have, once it dried, it really lightened up. So I'm just putting another layer of that purple for his snout. That purple is one of the metallic colors, and those dry a lot lighter than when you first put them in. But boy, they're magical. I don't know. At this point, I just don't know if I would even want to paint if I didn't have access to these metallic colors, because I love them. I mean, it's actual love. So now I was like, oh, I've got to sort of carve in his mouth or his chin. And then I was like, oh, that's way too low. What are we doing? So I just wet my brush and sort of blended that out. And I decided to renegotiate his mouth after his little snout dried. Because I was just like, no, that's not. The good thing is when you're watercoloring, as you lay something down, you do have that time that you can sort of pick it back up and make a different choice. So I'm painting his eyes in right now, and I'm trying to leave a spot that doesn't have the black, and then I'll go in with that white Posca and make the shine of his eye. And because I don't have a reference photo, and generally I'm using a reference photo, at this point I'm trying to remember how I painted the nose of Harold, because hedgehog noses have a very distinct shape, and the nostrils kind of are they kind of come in from the side and go up. So I'm like, hey, how detailed do I want this? Because remember, originally this was not supposed to be as detailed as I painted Harold the Hedgehog before. It was supposed to be a sort of quick, cute, but not so detailed hedgehog. And what we're seeing is that I tend to err on the side of more detail. It's just the way that I paint, you guys. You have to just accept me. Accept me. So now I'm just carving in the inside of his ears, and as you can see, because of the way that I swiped it, it carves out the light hairs that are going over the ears. It makes those stand out because I painted in the shadow. And then the light's sort of reflecting off of one of his ears, so you can't really see. I'm always kind of doing a dance with these lights that I have above my painting setup, because if I have them in just the right way, I don't create those glares, but I also don't have an even fill of light. And I really wanted to have an even fill of light here. So I'm just painting in his little feet with that same camel color here. And just darkening up maybe like a little bit between his fingers, giving him some shape in his hands. Not shape, giving him some depth in his hands there. And he's turning out pretty cute. It's funny, when I try to do something simple and undetailed, I never know when to stop. I'm never like, okay, look it, this is already a cute watercolor. I can just leave it because it's cute. But no, no. I'm like, even maybe if I just do this or I just add this, he'll, be cuter or be more lifelike or something like that. So now I'm darkening this and then realizing, oh, I think this is too dark. He's starting to look like a bear. So, I mean, I don't have anything against bears, but he's supposed to be a hedgehog. You know what I'm saying? And he's supposed to be holding this heart, and that would be a really big heart if he was a bear. So now because that purple color had dried, now I can put in sort of a hint of where his little smile or his mouth is, and it's much higher than where I had put it originally. Just give him a little snout. And I'm looking at his face and I'm like, I think it is time to get that Posca pen out and re-carve out the light portion, because his face is supposed to be much lighter than the little spines around him. So what I decided to do is I mixed that camel color with some of the white Posca. So it's not white that I am painting onto his face. It is Posca pen paint that is white, but it's mixed with that camel color. So it's not going to be so like stark white. But so see, I'm just sort of wisping in some of that color, and it looks pretty white, but if I had left it straight white, you would really be able to see the difference. This definitely is a little bit tinted by that camel color. But so as I do this and fill it in, you'll be able to see that he sort of becomes more hedgehog-like. See? I'm lightening up his face. It's magic. So you can essentially make the Posca paint that comes in that Posca pen any color you want, and it'll be more opaque. So if you want to paint on top of something, you just mix it with the Posca paint, and it's just magic. You're able to see, I was able to lighten up his face. Yeah. So he's not so dark, and so now he's more hedgehog-like, in my opinion. I honestly don't think at this point that I could paint without using that Posca pen, because I just love using it for highlights. So I'm able to highlight the top of his hands, and it really gives his hands and his feet more dimension and more shape. And I'm just sort of blending his little face fur out. You guys, I have my paints this time. I don't know if you noticed. I have my palette of paints on the opposite side than I usually do. And it just really threw me off. So now I went straight into the white. This is the white. Now you can see the difference between the white and that sort of tinted that I used. And I'm doing that because I'm making those white tips on his little spines. And see how it's just making him a cute hedgehog. I love him. I love him. He is a very portly hedgehog. He's a healthy hedgehog. Yeah. So I'm just adding those little tips of his spines. And again, it's another layer. Now this is not, this is straight Posca paint out of a Posca pen. And I will put my affiliate link to the Posca pen in the description of this video, so that if you don't have one and you just want to try, see, I'm putting that white in to that little shine area that I left open in his eyes. Oh, it's so cute. Oh, he's so cute. Now, you guys, I'm also going to use that Posca pen to make the heart shiny. But now I'm just making his nose a little bit bigger, because I'm just like, I feel like without a reference photo, I'm always like, am I doing it right? Am I doing it right? I'm telling you, I rarely paint without a reference photo. But this time I just thought, I'll do it. And he kind of does look a little bit like a teddy bear, but honestly, the difference in the face or the snout of a hedgehog and a bear really has to do with the angle of the nostrils. And I'm not sure that I got it just right, but that's okay. It's art, artistic license. I mean, you make those noses however you want. However you want. He kind of even looks a little bit like an Ewok, like from Star Wars. He's an Ewok. Oh my gosh. Now I'm not going to be able to unsee it. And now I'm thinking of the little Ewok sounds from the movie. So I'm using that Posca paint to make a little shine on his nose, to make his nose have a little bit of shape and dimension, so it's not just flat. And I'm struggling because I'm like, Sarah, don't overdo it on the detail. Like, be finished, because remember, the goal is one single video, because we don't want to have a part 1, part 2, part 3. In fact, I'm going to take this moment to ask you, if you would please, if you've gotten this far in this video and you have an opinion, whether it is negative or positive, if you have an opinion about real-time painting versus when I've done the time lapse, or when I've done it real time, but it's so long that I have to put it in 3 parts. What do you prefer? Do you prefer a more simple painting like this one, where I can get it all into one and make it real time? Or do you not mind when it's, I would just really, really love your feedback. If you don't mind when it's sort of hyperlapse, where it's going, or it's fast forwarded, or if you just like it simple, or you really like the very complicated ones where they have a background and they're just a more involved painting. Any advice that you have, I would very much love to hear from you. I'm not interested in only hearing how much you love the painting or how much you enjoyed painting yourself. I really want constructive criticism if you've got it, for sure. I mean, I love hearing if you love painting with me. But any constructive criticism is so helpful for me. I mean, I'm trying to grow my channel and grow my little community of painters, and I want to hear you. I want to listen to your advice and paint what you want to paint and paint how you want to paint, because that's what it's all about. So fun. So now I'm just putting in, I'm taking black, like actual black, not just the darkest brown, and I'm trying to deepen in his body there, because I had put so much white that it almost looks like he just has hair or spines. So I'm just sort of giving more like volume to his body there. And as I was babbling on, we've put a shadow below him, and I've said this a million times. It is incredible what just adding a shadow can do for your painting. It really makes a remarkable difference. So now I'm using that Posca paint. So that's the Posca paint from the pen. I just dab some of it out of the pen on a piece of paper, and then I use it just like paint with the same brushes I use for watercolor. And I am creating a shine pattern on the heart so that it looks bulbous, not just flat, and so that it looks shiny. I love shiny. I actually really love how this heart turned out. It's so funny. I never just paint something and leave it and let it dry. You know, I'm always like adding another layer, and sometimes you don't need to, because this heart turned out very cute and it was basically one layer and then let dry. But now we're just adding these little shines, because I found in my last couple paintings that adding the shine to the hearts just sort of leveled up the painting, in my opinion. Just sort of leveled it up. It made it, for just this little effort of adding the shines on, I think it has a big impact on the effectiveness of the image that you're painting. It just looks really cute. And really, I mean, it's a Valentine. Cute is what we're going for. And I'm not looking at a reference for this either, because now I have painted the capybara with balloons with this shine on him, and my hippopotamus, he's holding his balloon. If you haven't yet watched those paintings, those were each of those were uploaded in 3 parts, because I wanted to do them real time, not hyperlapse, so that you could paint with me. But they took so incredibly long that we had to put them into 3 parts, because I think each one I was painting for like 3 hours. So the parts are like 45 to an hour minutes long each part. But look at the difference of the feel of the painting once you put these shine marks in. The impact is really cool. so the impact of the shine marks, but also the impact of that shadow. I mean, for such a little thing as a shadow, the impact, I mean, all of a sudden he's not floating in space. All of a sudden he actually has volume and he's sitting there and you can see he's being affected by the light where he's standing. And I just think that that's really cool. Now I'm looking at him and I'm like, what if he had like one of those little like Instagram filters or TikTok filters where they have the little hearts above their head because, you know, it's like a love gram or whatever. So I'm like, I'm going to give him little hearts because he's a Valentine and he's in love. Or she. I guess it could be a she also. Although if it was a she, I would probably give her like a little bow or something. So I decided that I took the same initial pink that I used, but I'm going to make the hearts. I'm going to use a couple different colors because I thought that would be cute. To use some reds and some different. So this color that I'm dipping in right now, I have not used yet in this palette. I haven't used it, so that's always exciting. That's always exciting. So it's not going to be, you know, vastly different, but I thought it would be cute to have just a couple of different colors of hearts above. And I'm spreading out and I'm just freehanding these hearts, which, you know, don't judge. They're not going to be perfect, but, you know, it's art. It doesn't need to be perfect. So I'm just sort of putting different sizes of hearts here and there, and I'm going to dip into another color and make a different color. One that's, I think I'm going to do like the stronger, like true red, because those were kind of like a pinky red. And this is more of like the red that I was using at like Christmas time. He's cute. He's cute, but he's definitely like a bear hedgehog. It's okay. He's a hedgehog. He's a hedgehog. Now that I'm looking at him, I'm like, okay, but he could be a bear. That's okay. It's okay, guys. If your hedgehog looks like a bear, you know, it's okay. It's okay, because mine does too. And if you don't necessarily like the addition of the little hearts, you can, of course, stop just with the hedgehog and his big, like, shiny Valentine. But I thought it would be cute. So I'm going to keep doing different colors. It's really fun as you're painting and as your painting is drying. There's something about an all the way, like fully dry watercolor that looks different than a mostly dry watercolor. And I know that you're going to be like, what in the world are you talking about? But I will complete a whole painting sometimes and I'll love it. And then I'll go to sleep, and in the morning when I look at it, it's different. It's like the fully dry version, and to me, it just has like so much more depth, and I don't know. I used to think it was because I hadn't been staring at it for an hour, that when I came back to it, it looked different, but I've looked at video of me painting it and then started the video again once it was dry, and it does look different. It does. Magic happens when drying process is complete. It's magical. Oh, he is so in love that little hearts are floating around his head. I don't think that this is Harold because he doesn't look like Harold. I think we're going to call him Theo. And we're going to call him Theo because he kind of looks like a teddy bear. Teddy Roosevelt. Theodore. Theo, short for Theodore. This is Theo the bear hedgehog. And maybe someday I'll put Harold and Theo together in a painting because they really do look quite different. Now I'm just using some of that Posca paint to create little shines on all the little hearts. And there it is. And now I'm sort of deciding that he's finished and it is time to sign him. This little thin pen that I use is almost running out, so my signature was barely visible, so I had to go over it a couple times here. I really hope you guys enjoyed painting with me today. I am happy that I was able to complete a painting real time, under an hour, so we can just do a single part. So now I'm taking the tape off. Somebody asked me a couple of videos back why I always tape it down, because I guess not everybody does. And I tape it down because if I get something very wet and it's not taped down, the paper warps. This one probably wouldn't have, but the paper warps. So there he is. I hope you guys painted one with me. Please let me know in the comments any feedback that you have. I would really appreciate it. And if you haven't subscribed, please do so. I used these grabbies. I used a number 7, a number 3, and a 0. And of course, this is the Posca. That's the Posca pen. And I just dab it on a piece of paper and use it with a paintbrush. And this, of course, is my favorite palette. Thanks. I'll see you next time.